we're all here. I want to welcome everybody to the June 25th meeting of the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners. I apologize for the late start. Hopefully this will be a shorter meeting. Let's start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so first, I want to provide notice of the executive session we held tonight. 6 commissioners were present. President Borowski was absent. I do want to set forth that we are pulling item C, the Ardrossan preliminary final lot line plan. The applicant's unavailable, so the applicant asked that it be pulled. So with that, we'll go on to the consent agenda, which is very short. So, sorry. We'll move on to the consent agenda here, which is fairly short. These are rudimentary items that we don't believe require debate or public comment. Any commissioner can pull any item out that he or she wants to. Is there any commissioner that wants to pull any item out? All right, hearing none. Staff, is there anything the staff wants to pull out of the consent agenda? No? And we also give the opportunity to the public, too. If there's anything that anyone wants to pull out, please let me know. All right. Well, seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda, items A through D.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. So with that, we had no one from the public that requested anything, neither did staff. So at this point, I will call the vote. All those in favor of passing the consent agenda, items 1A through D, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Any nays? Motion passes 6-0. At this point, we will take public participation.
Bob, is there any problem with the internet connection? Does anybody else have an internet?
No, I'm on.
Yeah?
You can't get on either? I got on. Oh.
We'll check on that, Rich.
Oh. I got on.
That's all right, I'll go with my mobile hotspot.
Good evening.
Hi, Jane.
Jane Galley, 7th Ward. I am here as a public service announcement. I want to remind everybody that this Saturday, if you'd like to come out and rake and get a garden and do kinds of cleanup inside the mansion, we would love to have you because we need all the volunteers we can get. We will have coffee and donuts, and since it's going to be so hot, we'll have water as well. So for all those really good reasons, come on out and get the mansion looking good so we can earn some money.
Love it. Thank you, Jane.
Jane, what's the time on that?
Oh, it's 9 to 1.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
And it's at the Willows, right, at the mansion. We ask that you park down below so that there's plenty of room up there and no one gets run over.
All right. Is there any other public comment?
Good evening, Commissioners. Dan Sherry, Wayne, just have a handout. Let's put that on here. Reason I wanted to come and speak tonight related to the last Board of Commissioners meeting and a motion to censure that occurred about 45 minutes in, and then some dialogue that occurred about an hour later. And if we could zoom in on it, we'll be going through this verbatim because this is a verbatim transcription. Although I'm not a certified court reporter, I am good at watching YouTube and stopping the tape and writing down what people says, and we'll get to that. At the start of the last meeting, a motion to censure 7th Ward Commissioner Sean Farry was put forward because of a letter that Sean Farry had in his capacity as a commissioner directed towards the new township solicitor, Jim Byrne, and his law firm. That vote to censure failed. It failed because of votes cast by Lisa Borowski, who's not present tonight, John Nagel, himself subject of a motion to censure that occurred about 2 years ago, Jack Larkin, who was impressed by the fact that Sean Farry hadn't actually used the word direct, even though Farry had threatened to report the duly appointed solicitor to oversight authorities if he continued to act. And Sean Farry himself. Sean Farry actually voted on a motion to censure Sean Farry. And there was not, from the president, any rebuke of Mr. Farry for that act, which of course is at a minimum a massive conflict of interest. And I remarked when that vote was taking place that if this board failed to censure Mr. Farry, who has a history of very problematic remarks and dishonesty, that it would likely continue that behavior on his part. And now we come about an hour later. And I don't know if the people at home or the people in the room can see this. I tried to pick red and green. Mr. Farry likes red and green in terms of light bulbs going off and on in order to cut down the public's comments. So I picked those colors not by happenstance. But this happens about an hour later. And I'm just going to read it aloud. And people who want to view this live, just go to 143:57 of the meeting. Here's what Sean Farry says. So my concern is, again, when you look at what they give, you have Jim Byrne. He's the Springfield Township solicitor, and he contributes to the Springfield Township Republicans who, I'm sure, no doubt, kind of funnel that money back to the individual candidates. I'm not sure about that. That would just be my guess. So it just seems, Commissioner Clark, that's quite an accusation. Farry, no, it's not an act. It's not an act. I've said, Rich Booker, well, that sounded like an accusation. Farry, but no. I'm just saying that they may do that, they may not do that. Now, a number of things here. First of all, when you say, I'm sure, no doubt, and then next sentence, I'm not sure about that, I think you have to question a number of things about that speaker. But more importantly, this type of language, when it's advanced from the dais, it's consequential. And what did Farry do? Leveled a very, very significant charge about somebody being involved in a funneling money, really more or less scheme, and then immediately admits thereafter that he's not sure about that. Just my guess. In other words, a gratuitous remark. And thereafter, they may do that, they may not. When you don't censure people like Sean Farry, when you don't demonstrate that this board doesn't tolerate that type of behavior, you're going to continue to have this. If somebody up on the dais has criticism or concern about somebody, certainly they should have evidence to back it up, not making these types of gratuitous comments. And again, and I direct this to you more than anybody else, Mr. Larkin, because you are an attorney. The fact that you were so impressed by Sean Farry not using the word direct, that you failed to censure him. Do you think that this is appropriate behavior to say about an attorney without any evidence proffered? In fact, admittedly, after you say, I'm sure, no doubt, then immediately an acknowledgement that that's just a guess, and a couple sentences later, well, they may not. You're going to continue to have these problems. Thanks.
All right. Do we have any other public comment? Ms. Martin?
Hi, good evening. Kelly Martin, 7th Ward. And to follow up on Dan Cherry's comments, I was really disappointed, and especially Mr. Larkin, that as an attorney, you know the seriousness of the accusations that the 7th Ward Commissioner was making. And it has severely disenfranchised the residents in the 7th Ward, that they don't think that they have a voice or someone that they can speak to, because it has been my experience that the 7th Ward Commissioner uses his voice, he doesn't act as a representative of the people in the ward. And secondly, I wanted to ask about the McCone, if we're able to discuss that tonight. I didn't see it on old business. Wondering if that's going to be discussed tonight. I understand that the last time John Rice was here, he said that no one was allowed to speak about it. So I'd like to ask for a follow-up, if we can do that maybe under old business or at the end of the evening. And I wanted to follow up on the RFPs and how that process is going. I know there was a lot of disappointment from the audience or the residents last week about the way that this went down, the solicitorship. So I'm hoping that there's going to be more discussion on that. I didn't see it on the agenda, but I do hope that we're able to cover those topics.
Raise them for old business. I had another one as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Booker.
Hi, Sarah.
Sarah Pilling, 29 Garrett Avenue. I am loath to speak about this, but I do not appreciate Ms. Martin talking about Ward 7 is disappointed. She is disappointed, and perhaps some people she's with, but I resent her speaking collectively about the 7th Ward because we're not collective. Thank you.
Tony.
Good evening, Tony Bailey, Ward 7, Conestoga Village. I was very disturbed and disappointed the June 11th Board of Commissioners meeting by some of the conduct that I observed. So I reached out to Mr. Farhi, and I said that I felt that he should have been censured because censured is defined as an expression of disapproval, reprimand, or find fault with. And so I was perplexed why the board, it's not a harsh thing, it's just a criticism. So I didn't understand why the board collectively or those who were here would vote, to pass that. It's a censure. It doesn't mean he can't speak anymore. So, and I said to Mr. Farhi that, when I walked up to the podium June 11th, I expressed that I thought his comments were, at the very least, divisive. And for the sake of this process, these meetings, could he simply apologize? And he said no. He absolutely would not apologize. So we had a discussion, about the letter to the solicitor that was elected, voted for by a 4-3 vote. I didn't see that there was anything partisan about it, although if you read this, it's interjected all the time about partisan politics. I see the 7 of you being people, not Republicans, not Democrats. I see you when you put your hand on the Bible and took the oath that you swore to represent not only your community, but Radnor Township. No allegiance to any one particular party. If you make contributions to whomever, that's your right and that's your privilege. To make an issue out of that in this letter is just not only inappropriate, it's the accusation is uncalled for. And, I took some notes because I didn't have this letter at first. And I think some of the accusations leveled at the solicitor, Byrne, who is a solicitor in Springfield and Haverford Township, by all accounts does a very good job, as I mentioned before. There's accusations about the 11th hour, jamming this through. The solicitorship puts the cart before the horse. I come to these meetings, I did not see that. And just to keep calling it out and saying, this is a Republican thing versus, a Democratic thing is just really uncalled for. So I am asking again, Commissioner Farhi, if you wouldn't just abide by my request and just apologize. I don't think Solicitor Byrne should have been subjected to that. It was threatening, too. At the very end of the letter, I ask you immediately cease and desist any legal work or billing to or for the Radnor Township, as you have not been sworn in. Now, and to that comment, You asked me, did you see Solicitor Burns show up June 11th? And I said, no. And he said, well, you said, why not? Well, I didn't know why not, but I found out why not is because his contract was never signed. You knew that. You didn't tell me that. And I feel that's a violation of my trust between the two of us. I don't speak for anybody else. I don't speak for Ward 7. I speak for myself. And I just thought the whole letter was full of threats. And I do know you. And maybe there's a side of you that I haven't seen, but I do know another side. And I wish that side of you would come forward and project itself in all future meetings. I feel that you do owe an apology to Luke Clark, Commissioner Clark, sorry. And, you know, anybody else that I, you know, might have forgotten that there, you know, was an egregious comment made about. I just hope that in the future, whatever ill will that you might feel, or you know, feel that this is something that your constituents want to hear, I just wish that you would check in with yourself first before you make the comments. The last thing.
Jamie, we're at about 5 minutes.
Okay, this process was vetted. I will repeat that. There was also another allegation made by Ms. Stern when she came up here, accusing I think it was the news conference, that it violated some Sunshine Act, and I found out about that. That is incorrect. There was no Sunshine Act violation on the parts of the commissioners, Commissioner Booker, Commissioner Clark, no, you weren't there, and Commissioner Abel and Commissioner Matt Marshall. So I just want to get that out there. There was no violation. And I've been asked by what was the topic of the executive session? I know you mentioned it, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we discussed, I believe we discussed matters of legal personnel.
Personnel.
Yeah, personnel, yeah. Sorry about that. I forgot
I
that.
just asked. Thank you.
All right, is there any other public comment? All right, it looks like we're ready to move on to item A, which is the presentation of the 2017 independent audit. So with that, I would ask our auditors and Mr. Kane to come on up, introduce yourselves, and I'll let you make your presentation, please.
My name is Deborah Bacon. I'm from Zelenkowski Axelrod, and I was participating on the audit this year. I was the lead principal, and my associate here, Tim Miro, he was the senior auditor who did most of the field work. All I want to say at this time is that we are issuing and have issued to the executive committee a draft of the financial statements. They have a few more things that need to be added. We are going to hopefully get those tomorrow, and we anticipate that the entire comprehensive annual financial report will be issued by the end of this week, as it is due on June 30th. I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of ZA to thank all the management here, especially Bill White and Bob Tate, for all of their help. The audit went very, very smoothly. There's a clean opinion. There are no management comments or findings. So I'd like to turn it over now to Ed and Tim. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Kane in Cornerstone, Stone Creek Lane. I also am at the moment the only member of CARFAC. Having said that, I've been a member of CARFAC since the original inception. I have been chairing the audit subgroup of CARFAC since that inception. As you've already heard, it is a clean opinion. More importantly, from our viewpoint, from management's viewpoint, from my viewpoint, is, and I want to take a moment on history. I have the statistics going back to 2008. At that point in time, there were 34 management letter comments. There were enough that were material and significant. In reality, we were out of control, and that is something that the public needs to be aware of. This year, for the year that has ended, there are no management letter comments. And in an audit, the independent accounting firm is looking for those items, is testing controls, is making sure if there are any, it is brought to our attention immediately. We discuss it. We determine what the resolution needs to be. We move forward. There are none. Key part has been that all the controls, all the concerns over the years have been addressed by management. And starting at the top, I want to thank Mr. Zenkowski. I want to thank Mr. White. I want to thank Mr. Tate for their work and their work working with us to ensure that everything has been corrected. It has been. We have a clean opinion, and we should be most thankful for that. It's made my life easier as the chair of this audit subgroup, even though it's a one-person committee at the moment. With that, before we move forward, should I make the resolution first, or should I continue with the discussion?
I'll introduce the resolution if that concludes your comments,
No.
Mr. Kane.
The other part that Tim and I do want to talk about is, okay. There it goes. We have a brief presentation dealing with the new proposed change, and we're going to try to keep it in simple English, I promise you. Dealing with GASB number statement of 75, accounting and financial reporting for post-employment benefits other than pensions. The concept here was, and what we're discussing is the impact to the township. This applies to all state and local governments that provide post-employment benefits, OPEB, to their employees. This addresses the accounting and financial reporting for post-employment benefits that are provided to state and local government employer to the employees of state and local government employers, townships, municipalities, state governments. They're all falling in under this new requirement. As we have done in the past, we have a footnote disclosure before it is totally adopted and inputted into the financial statements so that we can show and we can be transparent to the stakeholders within the township what the impact will be. You want to discuss the next point?
Sure. With the adoption of GASB 75, which will take place in your 2018 financial statements, a net OPEB liability will now be required to be recognized for the full unfunded post-employment benefits liability. Previously, a liability was recognized to the extent that the annual required contribution was not funded. This change, as I previously mentioned, will be seen within the township's statement of net position in 2018, and the estimated increase in liability of $21 million. You will see that increase as shown on the next slide. So, as you can see in the table here, this is a snapshot out of your statement of net position in the 2017 financial statements. As reported is the current amounts, and then the assuming GASB 75 column is assuming GASB 75 would have been implemented. And you can see the highlighted FSLI, other post-employment benefits, which is where you'll see that increased liability.
What it means, we are not broke. We are not in a position, now what are we going to do? but we're finally putting it on the balance sheet as required by the GASB pronouncements, where it should be recorded. It has taken a number of years to get the powers that be that issue the GASB to go ahead and get this put into the balance sheet. It's where it's appropriate. There are many of the local municipalities that we compare ourselves to that are in much worse shape than Radnor Township. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is in worse shape. There are other state governments that are technically very broke, and they need to do something about it. We are working toward this. Management is working toward this to deal with this. But regardless, it is still a clean opinion. If this was fully implemented now, without putting words into the mouths of ZA, because the opinion letter is theirs, it would still be a clean opinion. So with that, that is our presentation tonight.
That's very promising and encouraging, so thank you very much. And I do think that Bob White and Bill Tate especially, I think they wrote a round of applause here for the great work that they do. Bill, Bob, I don't know if you want to add anything, but obviously that's a glowing review there, so thank you once again.
Well, I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. And just real quick, really, this is a project, an annual project that's headed up by Mr. Tate, and he deserves most of the credit with his leadership. At the end of the day, it's every single employee that we have. It's something that Mr. Zinkowski has mandated from day one, that these types, internal controls, financial management is the top priority, so it's a tone set immediately. And everyone is bought in. So we have a finance department that takes it very seriously. It's part of what we do every day. We don't talk about controls just when Tim and his crew are here. We talk about them every day. And we're always looking at our controls and evaluating them, signing off, and reviewing it. So it's an ongoing process. And it's really those folks that touch it every single day that deserve the credit and the round of applause. I wish they were here so everyone could see them. They're the real ones that get the job done every day. One other counting note, since we're on the topic, and I'd love to talk about it. The disclosure that we're including in our 2017 audited financial report is a pro forma. It is a year in advance of our required reporting. For those members on the board that have been here a few years, you'll remember 3 years ago we did this when GASB came out with the updated pension reporting. We reported it early in a pro forma and then adopted the GASB the next year officially. So this is step one. Again, we're trying to be on the front end. We've always been very open about these conversations. We know the numbers don't necessarily look pretty, but it's something that we've taken head on. Both the board and the administration, to make sure that we're being transparent and open about it. We do have funding plans in place. They're going to take a long time. This is step one in getting the net position and the numbers out there for everyone to understand. So, and that's due largely to Ed's leadership. He's the one that's telling us how important this is, and he's absolutely right. And then ZA and even our actuaries have jumped in to help make sure it gets done.
Well, we're certainly in strong financial position, relatively speaking, as far as I can tell. So thank you to all of you for all your work. So with that, I'll entertain a motion for the passage of Resolution 2018-49, which is board acceptance of the 2017 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report and Independent Audit Report.
So moved.
All right, is there a second? All right. So I don't know if there's any commissioner comment on this. We heard the report. I'm satisfied with what I heard. If anybody has any comments up here on the dais, please.
Well, I do, but I'm happy to let anybody else go first.
Oh.
Well, thanks very much, audit team. Appreciate it, and our finance guys for getting through the audit. we really were kind of dancing around a big issue. GASB 75, this might be the first step in disclosing the statement of net position, but it's not anywhere on there. The net position is, like most other municipalities, as you pointed out, is there's a big net deficit because now we're putting on the balance sheet that $23 million of OPEB, which was never there before. So the net position is 14 million in the negative. That's a big deal. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. The net position has been in the corporate world for a long time, for several years. We've had to put that same type of disclosure into the financials. And really what that, in my view, in my opinion, is driven is a shift away from these type of post-employment benefits and pensions, because it really does make the balance sheet look bad. So what I would ask is that we get some information. I know that we have everybody is under GASB, and we're going to have all the townships that we compare ourselves to are going to be in similar situations. I would like to see where our 14 million in net deficit relates to the others in the area and in the state, just as a comparison. Not to say that I'm worried about it, because I'm not worried about that. I'm honestly not worried about it. But we should know where we are relative on whatever metric you pick, on total revenues, total income, total expenditures, size of facility, whatever it is. We should compare ourselves and look what our net deficit is relative to our peers, and to see where we stack up on that net deficit. And we should, is this resolution going to be an introduction? This is going to be the resolution the one time. It'll never come back.
It's a resolution, yeah, it's one time.
For next year, for 2018, when GASB requires us to put it, we should make sure we put up a slide that goes on television so everybody sees where we are. We did, CARFAC did something similar when we looked at the pension and the police. We compared ourselves to all, I guess it was the MMO. We were looking at MMO and pensions. We should have something similar to that so that we can look at this net deficit in our position and compare ourselves. Not that I want to raise taxes to close it. I just want to know where we are, okay? And as a matter of fact, I'm going to be behind not raising taxes, and I want to be one of the most aggressive ones, but we do need to know where we are on it. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
As I remember, Bill, didn't we have a program plan in place so that we address this? So we have the money when we need it.
Yeah.
We don't have $14 million.
We don't need $14 million today.
Well, the statement of net position says we have a deficit of $14 million. So
that's right.
When you look at an audit, it's
Rich,
a slice.
I have the floor.
Hold on.
Jesus.
You're very rude. Look, see how people
you
are.
interrupt.
Hold on. Rich, he's right. Bill, he was talking to Bill. Please wait. Please wait.
So anyway, the 14 million is a accounting.
He said something wrong.
It's a reflection of the accounting requirements. However, the important thing for the citizens to understand is that we knew about this several years ago. CARFAC worked this all out for us. And we have put in place a plan of action to address this situation.
Yes.
And
So-
also, if we're going to compare us to anyone for our taxpayers, I think we should compare ourselves to the school district.
Well, we can certainly include that, anyone we want to compare ourselves against, as long as we can get the data and it's audited and
I mean,
accurate.
it's significant to the same, we're a common taxpayer group, and I think people need to understand the full impact.
Yeah. Briefly, CARFAC reported to the board in 2013 on the status of our pension and OPEB obligations. And in that report included recommendations on how to address it moving forward. The Board of Commissioners, starting in 2014, implemented the OPEB funding plan, which includes ramping up to that annual required contribution over a 10-year period. Once we hit the annual required contribution, then the assets will grow over time until, or are expected to grow in correlation to the expense over time. In addition to that, the plan included pre-funding any future township employees that are eligible for the benefit so that we're not adding to the liability. The only employees from that point moving forward that have any eligibility are newly hired police officers. We have been pre-funding those, and it's almost a third of the department at this point. On the civilian side, the benefit was eliminated. So again, it's not something that's going to accumulate and grow over time. And then the last piece is for the retirees and those that we're already paying on, we are paying on a pay-as-you-go basis. So we're budgeting the premium amounts annually that pay for that benefit. So the combination of all those factors were included in that CARFAC report, and in 2014 the board adopted that as a funding plan, and we're 5 years into it. The other part of it is that the horizon is like 2049 again, so it's not something that's going to happen quickly, nor maybe should it, because it would take something substantial financially to make that happen. But it is something that, again, the township has been very open about, and we've talked about it. The number has been included in all of our financial statements. It's just been in the back, in the footnotes, and now GASB's bringing it out of the footnotes and putting it on page 1, so to speak, which is okay. It makes the statement of net position much more comprehensive and accurate. But it is something that, while it's going to be new to our statement of net position, it's not something new to this room or to what we're working on financially.
Can I just ask one quick question? And I guess, Bill, you may be able to answer this. Just an opinion, if you can speculate. When it comes to this report, what does this do to our bond rating? What should this do? Should it increase it? Should it decrease it? Have no effect? Would it be easier to get money if we need it? Harder to get money? That's the independent report card that I view, is what this is our state of affairs and how much money we have or don't have. How would this be judged by a creditor if we need money going forward?
Sure. So like I mentioned, the liability itself is not new. It's been included in our financial statements going back a decade or so, maybe more now. So Moody's is well aware of our OPEB liability and what it looks like, and so I would speculate that it would have no impact at all on our credit rating or our ability to borrow or those interest rates.
What is our rating right now with Moody's?
AA1.
No,
Yeah, one step down
well
from
done.
AAA.
Thank you. Well done, guys.
All right. Commissioner Clark, can I finish now after being so rudely interrupted by
Yes.
Commissioner,
Yes.
or yep, such a rude.
Rich, come on, let's keep it on point.
So the issue is, the statement of net position is there's a deficit. Everybody's going to have a deficit. Oh, I guess everyone's going to have. I don't know that for sure. That's why I want to look at it. And I think Bill was very accurate. We don't have $14 million to plug this gap in the balance sheet, and we don't want to. 2049 is when we should hope, maybe we'll catch up before 2049, but that's the plan right now. So, and that's appropriate. Again, the issue was going to be relative to our peers, not the school district. School district has a $100 million budget. It's a different entity. It's its own entity. They can deal with their own issues. I want to compare with other townships who we compare with, and see where they are on some kind of a basis it's comparable, gross revenue or whatever it is. So we look at what our net position deficit is relative to our overall revenues, or whatever the rating agencies are going to be looking at. Because I'm sure this will be a new thing for the rating agencies. They'll focus on it more now, even though they've had the information in the past. now they're going to focus more on the net deficit in 2018 and beyond as part of their analysis. So whatever they're using, let's get a jump on that and look at that, where we are relatively.
As far as the rating agencies are concerned, this is something Carfax has worked with management looking at it. Rating agencies and Bill White was very clear about that. They're very much aware of it. They're aware of what our position is. They're aware of what other municipality positions are, other state governments. That's what I said. There are several, and I'm taking it at a higher level, there are several state governments that are broke, and from that viewpoint, and have a major issue how they're going to handle their funding. And I'm not going to go into which ones there are. It's public information.
Right now, is it public information? Because it's not required to be reported, so we've disclosed it, but does everybody disclose it? I don't think everybody does, do they?
Yeah. This is something I pushed with the township a number of years ago. Let's handle this ahead of the curve. Let's be transparent about it so everybody is aware of it, so there are no surprises. And first and foremost, what I was concerned about and what the audit subgroup was concerned about, what Carfax was concerned about, is that viewpoint of transparency, so everybody is aware.
Okay.
But again, not the other people, not everybody else. So
can
that's the
only-
change is going to be 2018. Everybody's going to have this out there. Everybody's dirty laundry is going to be right on page 1. So now we're going to look at it'll get a renewed view. So we're ready for it. But again, I want to know where we are relative to our peers.
And I agree with that. And to the extent we can obtain that information, we can work on that analysis.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Is there any further commissioner comment? Any further staff comment? Any public comment on the resolution to accept the audit report? I don't see any, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the passage of Resolution 2018-49, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. All right, passes 6-0. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Appreciate it. All right, the Ordrassen item is pulled. It was pulled by the applicant once again. So we'll move on to D, which is a motion to authorize county court action to remove building located at 220 Sproul Road. I'll move to authorize county court action to remove the building located at Sproul Road. Is there a second?
Second.
So the reason I wanted to move for that was because I know this house well. I know who the owner is. I know where he is. Incarcerated for a while, as far as I know. Right. And the house, even when I was knocking on it back in 2015, it looked like it was falling down, and it looked horrendous and scary, in my opinion. So I'm happy to move for this, and I hope that we'll get a majority vote on this, because I think it's necessary. But Solicitor Rice, if you can give us some background.
Yeah, you have in the info the notice of condemnation that Kevin issued back in mid-May. That one unappealed. You have photographs of the property. I think there's a tree still in the middle of the roof. The goal would be to get a court order to have the property cleared, have the building removed, lien the property for all the township's costs. But we have to get into county court in order to do that. So you've gotten some info from us. You have Kevin's notice of condemnation. We know that the owner is incarcerated, which may cause a little bit of a problem, but we certainly know where to serve him. And we're going to proceed to try to get a court order and clean the property up.
Can I ask a question? So does he have insurance? I mean, is it up to for us, or is there another channel that we should be going through or investigating first? If he does have insurance, isn't for us to supersede something?
Well, we don't think he has insurance. I mean, we don't have any way of knowing that, Sean. What we will do.
I mean, you could ask him. I know he's incarcerated, but I mean, for us to, I don't know what the legal ramifications are for us to go ahead. I mean, it's still his property. Am I correct?
Correct. Right. I mean, he was given notice of the violations. He didn't respond. He didn't file any kind of an appeal. At that point, we can go into district justice court and file a citation, which we've found out over the years doesn't get us anywhere, just a nominal fine and you're back to square one. So, you know, what we'll have to do is file a complaint, serve him, see if he responds to it. If he doesn't respond to it, then we'll be in front of Delaware County Court of Common Pleas seeking an order. If he has insurance, we will try to find that out. I don't think he does. You've seen the property.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen it, but that's, I don't want us to cause a problem later on for us that we've gone in. I mean, we know how to get a hold of him. That's just my.
That's why we seek the court order.
Okay.
I mean, that's, the court blesses that. We've done that on a couple occasions, and we have a couple more out there, Kevin, that we're probably going to have to move on. That are nuisances, they're dangerous situations, they're dangerous structures. And this is really the only effective solution other than we can send more violation notices, but we don't think this property owner, like a lot of property owners who have walked away from a property, is going to be able to fix it. So we've got, as you know, probably a half a dozen of these. There's 2 or 3 that are already in court. This is another one that warrants, I think, the board's, you know, moving this forward.
John, we lien the property when we do this then?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Part of the request to the court would be that we lien whatever our costs are. There's a cleanup cost here and a demo cost. Kevin, $50,000 to demo this building, probably, more or less?
75 to 100.
That much. Okay.
And then there'll be ongoing, probably grass cutting and things like that.
It may be. Right.
How do we determine when this notice of condemnation goes out? This one, it has a tree through it. I mean, I've talked to you about a similar situation. My neighbors are complaining about a property that they feel needs to be demolished as well. So what are the criteria to get to the point where you send a notice of condemnation?
Well, for this particular situation, I became aware of the complaint that was filed at the beginning of May, so we went out and conducted a site visit. It was at that point when I visited the site that I realized how significantly deteriorated the property had come. The partially collapsed roof, the tree through the roof that had been apparently there for quite some time. We ended up having to gain entry into the house because it was unlocked and unsecured, so to make sure that nobody was residing in there, and that's where most of those photographs come from. So it's really an on-site assessment that's done at the time of the site visit in response to the complaint.
So there's no bright line test to where you feel it should be condemned?
It's based off of the opinion of the code official when they visit the site.
And some kind of structural collapse would trigger that generally?
Generally, yeah, when you look at something like this with the tree through the roof and the 3rd floor collapsed down into the 1st floor in the one portion of the house, it became apparent that there was significant issues with the structure.
But if the structure is in place, then typically you don't, even if it's if it's a hoarding situation or something like that, that is different.
If it's structurally sound and secured, then we just make sure that there's an ongoing property maintenance issue, as is the case at the one in your ward, and we just keep after the property owner to make sure that it is maintained. There's no legal requirement if it is in sound condition that we can order them to demolish the building.
Thank you.
I have another follow-up. So why is this not eligible for a sheriff's sale? I don't know the real estate law that well. Then it would seem that the township would have to do less work.
Well,
Paying the taxes?
Yeah, if he's
sheriff's,
not paying the
sheriff's sale
taxes,
would be if they
he's not
move
paying
on
it.
unpaid real estate taxes.
Okay, is there unpaid real estate tax at this point?
Sean, I don't know. I haven't looked at that. What we will do, if the board authorizes us to proceed, we will look at that.
Because won't that be, yeah, that'd
We'll
be.
see if there's a lender involved.
Okay.
Is there a mortgage against the property before we do anything?
So wouldn't that be, if that's the case, wouldn't that be a quicker way to dispose of this, I don't want to say asset, but more of a liability at this point?
That just sells the property. That doesn't fix it. That
Well,
doesn't,
I mean, but that's obviously, you know, it's not going to say if someone buys that property, they're going to buy it for next to nothing, knowing that it's, you know, I mean, the land is worth more or less the demolition costs. So is that something that the board or you guys could look at?
If the township takes the building down, liens the property, the township can take that property to a sheriff's sale. And then the taxes, any liens, any mortgages would come out of that sale.
Sure, but there's no guarantee that the township would get its money back if we demolish it and we we put the money up front.
If that gets sold as a building lot, we'll get our money back.
I mean, we hope, but it's not guaranteed. I'd rather just see it, sell it as is, and just be done with it. We can't make any money off of that anyway, because if there was any profit, we would have to give it back to the owner. You know, you can't make a profit off of that, nor can a lender make a profit.
We're not going to own it. We just want to be reimbursed for our enforcement costs. And that's typically, you know, what would happen if you have a situation where it's clear, it's a building lot, it goes to a sheriff's sale. Someone's going to want to build something on that lot, and they will come to the township and want to talk to the township about what they can and can't do on that lot. And if we have a lien, that's going to be part of anybody that would buy it at a sheriff's sale is going to have to get a building permit from Radnor Township. So we would have to be paid before the township would agree to something like that.
I guess, well, technically a question on that. Sean, I think, is right. If the lien exceeded the transfer price for the property, we wouldn't get all the money back.
Correct.
And when you knock that down, I mean, God knows what you could find. Yeah.
Municipal claims are going
I'm
to...
sure the property's worth more than $100,000. I'm sure that land is. I'm just saying the quicker you could dispose of it, the quicker someone could knock it down at their, you know, on their dime, build something up, we can get those permit fees, et cetera, the better. I don't think it's the best use of our township resources to go in there and to try to fix it, quote unquote, ourselves when you have a ton, you know, there's not much more developable land in Radnor. You have a ton of real estate guys that would probably love to have that. It's a prime piece of real estate.
Well, I think the concern, the concern that we're addressing is the unsafe building, right? I mean, I think that's more, if somebody buys that, obviously they're still subject to our ordinances, but
Correct.
You know, the pressing matter is the unsafe building.
So right now, you think that it's such a safety hazard, it's a nuisance, it needs to be immediately addressed, so we're going to move to tear it down rather than pursue a tax sale?
In my opinion, yes, and it's causing a blight on the surrounding properties.
Is there any further commissioner comment? Any further staff comment? Any public comment on the motion to authorize this county court action? All right, seeing none, we're going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion to authorize county court action to remove the building located at Sproul Road, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Passes 6-0. All right, Commissioner Abel, Personnel and Administration, any report?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Public Safety is me, nothing really to report there. There is a good segment from Chief Flanagan regarding school safety that and it's on our website where he discusses that with a panel of experts. It's very good, so I'd encourage everyone to review it when you can. Chief Flanagan did a great job as usual.
I have one thing on public safety. Bob, can you give an update on Leslie Road and the trees there?
Yes, it was determined there was a question regarding the health of some trees. We asked John Hesbeck to go out. The original concern is whether or not there was a tree or two that was safe. The trees were evaluated, and there are 16 trees that are in serious condition there, and those trees will be removed here very shortly. So the residents should be aware on that street that over the next week and a half, that 16 trees will come down due to the hazardous condition that our arborists found those in.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, moving on to Parks and Recreation. Commissioner Nagel, any report?
Parks and Rec, they had their annual camp out. It was a big success. And summer camp is underway.
And my son is there and had a great first day. So if Tammy's not here, but they do a great job with that summer camp. My son was looking forward to it for a while. The library, that's Lisa. She's not here. The grand opening, as far as I know, is still scheduled for July 2nd. Is that correct? All right. So make sure to check that out if you can. Public Health, Commissioner Nagel, any report?
The Board of Health continues to investigate the questions that were raised about smoking on North Wayne Avenue and playgrounds. They had an excellent presentation, not this past meeting, but one before that, on vaping. It is available on the website. I encourage everybody to take a look at it. We had a couple of reports by the students. We have high school students that participate in the Board of Health. They had some very nice reports, and were given a nice send-off by the Board of Health.
Thank you. Moving on, is there any new business? Now, I know there's some old business that's being brought up. Let's try to keep it succinct, please.
3 items.
Turn it over to you.
Right, but it's 8 o'clock, so we got plenty of time.
We
got plenty of time till 11.
Let's keep it. I wanted an hour. Yeah, I wanted an hour. Don't ruin
All right,
my.
this won't go 3 hours, I promise. First item of old business, trucks on Belrose Lane. We have some, at Belrose and Glen Mary, we had a traffic committee meeting this past week, and one of the neighbors talked about the traffic issue on Belrose, and I heard it also the same day. Again, complaints of trucks on Glen Mary traveling. Both are complaining about speeding and traffic on Glen Mary and Belrose. And as we all know, the issue is when we have trucks that are too large to go under the bridge, they immediately turn down Belrose and cut through Glen Mary. It continues to be an issue, and wanted to see if we have anything new that we can talk about as a result of that traffic committee meeting, or otherwise. Anything new we can report at this point, Bob and Chris?
Commissioner Booker, as you're aware, a new resident to Belrose had moved in. They talked about the speed, so we, as a normal process, we're going to go out, evaluate the signs. So one thing, there's a not a stop sign, a speed limit sign that's not present on the curve, so we're going to add one there. We'll also make sure everybody's compliant with the visual setbacks from bushes to allow better safety on the street. There was comments about trucks. The main was about speed, so we're going to evaluate that and work with the residents specifically.
And, again, I think it's all tied together. It's the traffic, it's the trucks, and Glen Mary is also part of it as well. We have had Steve McNellis in Public Works has put up a bunch of we have signage galore out there, so we appreciate those signs, and we'll continue to work on that. The second item, per Ms. Kelly Martin, we wanted to find out an update on the McCone investigation. Ms. Kelly Martin is correct that we had said that there was an ongoing investigation per advice of John Rice, that we were not to speak of the investigation work that had been done since the board directed the solicitor to prepare a letter for the DA. Can we talk about it at this point? And if not, why not? And what is succinctly the rationale for continuing to maintain this as a private and confidential matter when it's been in the public realm for 6 months?
Well, as the board knows, you authorized solicitor to send a letter to the DA's office. That has not been done yet. It'll be done this week. It's still an ongoing investigation, in my view, because you've asked the DA to look into it. I don't think it's appropriate to discuss it. I mean, that was board action. You wanted it to continue to be investigated. I don't think it's appropriate for public comment. What I said, I think, when I was last here, was it's something that the board ought to discuss in executive session, the status of the investigation and what happens next. And what happens next is that you voted a month ago to authorize a letter to be sent and ask the DA to continue investigating this.
We authorize that to occur if in conjunction with and if Doug McCone did not come in and talk with the board, but my understanding is he did come in. Why can't we get a report on what he said, and why can't we make that public?
It's part of what I'm reporting to the DA. That's being reported to the DA, the result of that discussion.
Is there any kind of a formal written document or anything written that you can give us that sets out a precedent why we would keep that private or non-public?
Rich, I'm going to just repeat what I said. It's part of an ongoing investigation that this board has asked the DA to look into. So what I'm sending to the DA, you know, includes what occurred with Doug McCone.
Commissioner Clark, I'd ask for public comment at this point. I've done what I could do. We've all heard the response, so.
I mean, I was going to save everybody until the public participation section. I was hoping to get through these things, and then people can address all three of them.
All right, well, that's fine.
Okay, so
that's
let's get through the third one.
My third one is the bids. Again, that was requested. We set out a bid for all professional services. We looked at only the solicitor at this point, and that remains ongoing, is my understanding. What's the schedule for the other engineering professional services? We have boxes of bids that I have copiously studied and have not had an opportunity to weigh in on, so I'm anxious to undergo that process and the review of the bid. So is there any update on that from anyone who can answer that?
Aren't we doing that as part of the budget process?
You'll have recommendations at the July meeting.
Okay.
Well, at the last meeting, there was indications that we were going to put out a new RFP for the solicitor role. Do we, I mean, any of my colleagues who made those comments, do we have a timeline, a time frame for that?
Well, I would like to put out an RFP for that position. I think that we should. I know that ordinarily we do that starting in January. I guess we can move on that sooner. It seems to me like we should deal with that in January. But again, I'm not adverse to starting a little sooner, so whatever you guys want.
Well, if anybody wants it on the agenda, put it on for July.
And I just one clarification on the solicitor spot. When was the so we brought back John Rice as an interim. When was that letter signed bringing him back? Bob, do you know?
Do we have that? We can look it up for you here.
Okay.
All right. Is there any other old business?
Yeah. Well, one final piece of old business. At the last meeting, Bob, you'd indicated that there was discussions with the Communications Council on holding meetings regarding cell service.
Correct.
Do we have that on the schedule?
I believe they are looking at their July meeting, having that on their July meeting.
Is that posted on the website currently?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that for the Willows, or is that in general?
That's in general, and I believe what we are looking to do is give them a past history, present the past history of where it is, of what's been covered, present that to them. I believe that is for their regularly scheduled meeting for July.
Okay.
All right. Any other old business? All right, let's move on to our second round of public participation. Mr. Sherry.
Hi. Since timing was brought up. So just to recap what we heard from Commissioner Booker. 30 days ago, this board instructs John Rice, hey, McCone's coming in, write a letter to the district attorney. Hasn't happened yet. 30 days. How long does it take to write a letter? Sometime this week, maybe. That's a nice way to have your cake and eat it too. It's an ongoing investigation. Don't talk about it. Oh, okay, I thought we told you to refer the matter over to the district attorney a month ago. No, I haven't gotten around to that yet. Huh. Cute. It's either this township has an ongoing investigation or it doesn't have an ongoing investigation. What you just heard from John Rice is, oh, I think it's an ongoing investigation because we told the district attorney to look into that. Does that make sense to anybody up here? Okay. If this township is done investigating Exhibit 6 and by extension McCone, you should all be able to talk about that investigation because it's no longer current. The district attorney does not answer to the township. The district attorney is its own entity. If it determines that McCone or people associated with McCone committed a crime, they'll handle it. The only thing that this board should be concerned about is whether or not this township is doing an ongoing investigation. And for some reason, despite clear directive from the board, John Rice never got around to writing the letter until this week. And that was announced as a result of Rich Booker asking the question tonight. There was no succinct response given by the solicitors to why you guys can't talk about what, if anything, McCone might have told you. What's the basis? Is this township looking to pay John Rice any more money to investigate McCone? You've already paid him more than $6 grand. I think the answer to that is no. No further investigation from this township. As a result, what did McCone say? This board couldn't have possibly entered into some type of confidentiality agreement with Doug McCone. There's certainly no protective order governing the case because you're not in active litigation with McCone. And what? We just want to continue to sit and wait and sit and wait and sit and wait. Does that inure to the benefit of the township? Does that inure to the benefit of McCone and the people that might be associated with McCone? Because the longer you stretch this out, the less likely the public is to be interested. This board shouldn't be in the realm of doing that to help people who inappropriately disclosed a confidential document that was weaponized against a commissioner on the eve of an election. McCone took, what, as Commissioner Booker estimated, 6 months to come in and speak? Now, when I asked about whether there's a confidentiality agreement, I didn't see any nodding from anybody up on the dais going, oh, yeah, we gave Doug McCone immunity to come in and speak. No, there's no agreement like that. In fact, you can't have that type of private agreement. That would have to be something voted on by this board in public, and even then you'd run afoul of the Sunshine Act. So what gives? 30 days. John Rice couldn't write a letter. John Rice want to write a letter? I guess we'll see. But apparently in that letter, John Rice is going to what? Represent what McCone said? Did you record McCone? Do you have a stenographer come in? Or are you going to give a summary? What, like the summary that we all read in the Rice report that was ridiculous in my opinion, deficient in my opinion, and couldn't find out how McCone got the document, even though we knew that McCone ended up with the document? This board should answer to the public. This board should stop acting as a constructive advocate for Doug McCone. And that's what this is, by continuing not to talk about it and continuing to kick a can down the road. Or I guess when it comes to John Rice, who's now back after being fired, enabling this delay. I'm not big on hyperbole, but there is an expression, justice delayed is justice denied. Commissioner Booker has had to deal with this since mid-October, and I say Commissioner Booker slightly farcically, because really it's the township's property. It's the township's property that was leaked. It's the township's property that was leaked and destroyed any confidence in the ethics board being able to handle confidential material. And as Ms. Martin has pointed out at meetings, and I have as well, you still don't know to this day, at least the public doesn't, whether or not any other documents and materials got out. You don't know what else Doug McCone had access to. All you know is what Doug McCone chose to attach to a complaint. Hopefully we'll come back and we'll find out that there wasn't another 30 days that John Rice decided to just wait around. Thanks.
Jane?
Jane Galley, 7th Ward. I've sat through all of this along the way, and the sad part is this puts a pall over this board, or the board that was sitting here before, the staff, our police department, our lawyers, because no information is, no one is either being honest enough and say, yeah, you know what, I gave that out, it was a bad idea, I'm sorry, whatever, to anybody. And I think it's really too bad that honest, hardworking people in this township kind of sit there going, well, did he do it? Did she do it? Did, you know, who leaked it? Because we all know Radnor has one of the best grapevines that ever existed. And it's not always the best information. And I think it's really too bad that we've come to this point, that we sit here for months saying, well, what's going to happen? Are we going to do it? Are we not going to do it? Are we going to tell? Are we not going to tell? Someone know? Does nobody know? Ooh, well, that's really exciting. I'm just sorry. I'm really sorry we've come to this point. That's all.
Hi, Kelly Martin, 7th Ward. Thank you, Commissioner Booker, for bringing it up. I don't agree, or I don't seem to understand Solicitor Rice's explanation. I didn't see anything in the charter or anything saying that this information can't be released. We did not conduct a full investigation because we don't know who leaked the information. It could be someone in the township, it could be someone on the ethics committee, it could be, there was, I think, just one commissioner, maybe just one commissioner that had it. We haven't plugged the leak. We don't know how extensive the leak was. And there's a dark shadow cast over every one of the people who possibly could have done this. It sounds to me like anyone not seeking the response here, they're all holding brooms and sweeping this under the carpet, which looks really bad. It disenfranchises the voters, the residents. And I hope that we continue to follow this path. I obviously will, and it has been 8 months. That's no problem. It's really disappointing because it all occurred during the situation with Phil R. as president, and we had 4 commissioners sit on the dais and defend him staying on as president, which was very compelling to listen to them fight to keep a child pornography, just criminal scum. When you read through the indictment, the things that he did are the most atrocious crimes you can commit against a child. And the people that spoke to defend him and spoke to keep him here as our president, it's disgusting and it's disappointing. And they're the same people who asked to hide this McCone information. And any of the people here who are voting against releasing the information, I think that they're doing the same thing. So I'd appreciate you'd all put away your brooms and reveal the information to the public and get to the bottom of it so that no one wonders, was it someone in the police station? Was it someone on the ethics committee? Because there's a dark shadow cast on all of them until we get to the bottom of it. And I also wanted to apologize to Sarah Pilling because I did not intend to suggest that I spoke for all of Ward 7. I speak only for myself and anything that I've discussed with people in Ward 7, but of course it's just only my voice, not everyone. Thanks.
Mr. Gemmer?
Hi, Baron Gemmer, South Wayne. On the third item that Rich brought up, the bids, for the information that's been submitted, those proposals, as well as any, I think Steve Norsini at one point talked about putting a grid together like for engineering services and things. Can we get those posted to the website well ahead of the meeting so the residents can help weigh in on those decisions? Because we never saw anything for the solicitor, which, you know, obviously the different issue with appointed, but there's no appointed positions related to these others since we're not appointing the engineer. So
makes sense to me. Yeah. Any further public comment? Ms. Winters?
Roberta Winters, 326 Williams Road. I'm speaking for myself now, and I know that summertime, the living should be easy, and I hope you'll all have some time to veg out in the weeks ahead, and I have a few suggestions for your viewing pleasure. And it's entitled Following the Rules. One is the Sunshine Law and Open Records Forum that Mr. Abel provided for the township. I think it's on, thanks to our fine video services, it's on, and you can tune it into at any time. And also the Basics of Effective Meetings, which is Robert's Rules of Order, which we provided for a forum also for the township. And I know it's always busy time for you, so I hope this summer you'll have a time to check out those videos and learn more about the rules and operate more effective meetings in the future, which I think will be in everyone's best interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Handouts and everything. All right, is there any further public comment? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. Have a good night, everybody.